Hi, I'm Todd Pengelly, and I'm doing a video today on the basic history and geographic location of Libya. So let's just jump right in. To begin, Libya is situated in the north of Africa in the Sahara Desert. Its borders are the Mediterranean Sea to the north, Algeria and Tunisia to the west, Egypt to the east, and to the south it has Chad, southwest it has Niger, and the southeast it has Sudan. So that's, its relative placing in the world. It's large, about 675,000 square miles, which makes it the 17th largest nation in the world. However, most of Libya is an uninhabitable desert. In many places, it may only rain once a decade or more. Sometimes it will be once every 2 decades. In the south, there are granite mountains and plateaus, and in the religions that have been in Libya throughout its ages, those have been considered holy at many times. And there have been 2 major discoveries in Libya. The first was oil in 1959, which was a large reason that there was a military coup 10 years later against the king, but with that discovery of oil was an even larger discovery of an aquifer under most of the Libyan desert, which Gaddafi, its late leader in the 20th century and beginning of the 21st century, he harnessed that to create a statewide irrigation system, which was one of his crowning achievements. And speaking of Gaddafi, why don't we go to a basic Libyan historical setting. So Libya, unlike many places around the world, has been more of a hot potato than a stable civilization for most of its time in the world. And unlike most African nations, we do have a pretty clear history of Libya, dating back to ancient times. So beginning in the ancient times, it was originally settled by Berbers, which are nomadic tribes in the Sahara Desert that range from Egypt all the way to Morocco. And so they were the first settlers in Libya, and we see them pop up time and time again in a historical context. But the next major settlers were the Phoenicians, that later turned into the Carthaginian Empire. They settled in what is now Tripoli, or western Libya, around 1000 BCE, or BC. And then we also see that a couple hundred years later, the ancient Greeks settled in East Libya. So we had 2 civilizations living in Libya at the same time. We had the Phoenicians or Carthaginians in West Libya and the Greeks in Eastern Libya. And then throughout Libya, no matter where they lived, there were Berber tribes. And so eventually the Carthaginian Empire fell, and it fell to Rome, and Rome kind of coexisted. They didn't really take it over though, but eventually around 0 BC, the turn of history, we see that the Roman Empire does take it over from Greece as well, and it becomes a part of the Roman Empire. And it ruled there for about 400 years. It ruled all the way from Spain to, what is Israel and there now, and then up into Italy, where we usually think of Rome. And then it began to split by the 5th century AD, and where Libya is now was taken over by the Byzantine Empire, which was an empire constructed mainly out of the eastern half of what was then the Roman Empire. And the Byzantine Empire was highly unpopular. There were a lot of Berber revolts that they couldn't do anything about, and there were a lot of Muslim invaders. And so within 200 years, Muslim invaders fully took over Libya in 663 AD. Actually. And then for the next 1,000 years, there was an even larger game of hot potato between Muslim countries and Muslim invaders. And so I'm not going to go into all the specifics. I'm just going to do a brief control. I'm going to briefly, show you who had control. So it begins with the Caliph in Damascus, and then it was taken over by the Caliph in Baghdad, and then it was taken over by Egypt. Those are the first 3 major Muslim countries or nations or civilizations, whatever you want to call them at the time, that had control of Libyan territories. And then in 1001 AD, there was a successful Berber revolt against the ruling caliphate, and they basically owned and ran, even though they didn't really run it because they were nomads, Libya, for just over 100 years before it was invaded by the Sicilians. And they ruled it, they gained control of it in 1146 AD, but that did not last very long because the Almohad dynasty in Morocco took it over in 1159 AD, and they ruled there for even less than a century, because then the Tunisian Hafsid dynasty, which was a split away from the Almohad Moroccan leaders in 1221 AD, and they gained control of Libya. And so, like I said, it's a hot potato, it's hard to keep up with. But they ruled there for 300 years, and this is where it starts to steady out. They ruled there until they got caught in a power struggle between Spain and the Ottoman Empire in the 16th century. And in 1551, the Ottoman Empire took over for the Hafsid dynasty, and they took over Libya in 1551 AD and finished conquering it in 1577, and they ruled there until 1912, when they lost control of it to Italy after the end of the Italo, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Turkish War in 1912, and then Italy claimed them as colonies for just over 30 years until 1947, when they signed a treaty after the end of World War II, and then they gave control of Libya to the Allied forces, and Britain controlled them for the next 12 years until 4 years, until the day before Christmas in 1951, Libya declared independence and created a monarchy, which was ruled by a king. It was their only monarchy to date that they've had as their own rule. And so we see that rule from 1951 to 1969, when in September of that year, Muammar Gaddafi led a military coup against the king, and he was successful, as we all know. And he ruled Libya from 1970 until the Arab Spring in 2011, where he was executed or assassinated, or however you want to put it, he was killed. And basically since 2011, the country has been in open revolt and unrest and civil war, which between rebel groups and opposition groups, and that's allowed jihadi groups to spread all over Libya. And it's basically just been a mess of rebel groups and jihad since then. And so, yeah, that is the brief history of Libya. Sorry that was not 5 minutes, it was a little longer, and that's where it is geographically in the world. Thank you.